What's up, everybody? This is video number 3 of 3 in my Heroes and Villains series. If you recall, video number 1, I broke down a cue that was centered around the anti-hero. Video number 2, I broke down a cue that was more heroic. And in this video, I'll be breaking down a villain's cue entitled Medusa's Maker. And I wrote this cue for my Evil Empire album. So you guys know how we do it. First, we'll take a listen to it, and then we'll talk about it on the flip. All right, here we go. All right, so there you have it, Medusa's Maker. And so let's get into it a little bit, okay? So a couple of the basics. This is in E octatonic, and I've used that scale before. And basically, this is a scale where that alternates between whole steps and half steps on the scale degrees. So, you know, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. E octatonic, 120 beats per minute. And one thing that you'll always hear in a modern villain's cue is some type of identifier, a unique sound that helps us identify the villain. So I first want to show you what I am using for that particular sound. And I actually have a couple of sounds layered that I'm using there. So the first, well, let me play it for you in terms of how it does sound. So that is the actual sound, and basically what I'm doing is I'm using a couple of omnisphere patches and just layering those and then, kind of, using some distortion, etc. So let's kind of get into those a little bit. So this first patch is called Choral Effects Avant-Garde, is what it is called. And let's see what we have on it here. So the Choral Effects Avant-Garde, I actually have, excuse me, a decapitator on it and the stereo delay, excuse me, and the decapitator here. So I have that set in the T setting, which is the Culture Vulture triode setting, and I do not have the punish on, didn't have a stereo delay. So let's bypass those and take a listen to it. So that's what it bypassed. And then if we add our decapitator and our delay, we have. So just, a little more kind of, tightens the sound a little bit. And then, the delay kind of, gives it a little wider sound as well. So that's that. And then I also have this other sound here, so let's close that out. And it's another Omnisphere patch, and this is called Analog's Triumphant Return. And so we are using the decapitator on that, and as I said, that one is set to the Neve setting with the punish on. So let's bypass it and just listen to the bass sound. So, kind of a synthy, analog synthy type of sound. And then we just punish it a little bit with the decapitator. So there you have it. And then if we put both of those together again. So yeah, that's the sound. And you see it kind of sounds like a scream a bit or whatever, sounds kind of distressed and kind of sounds like a scream. So the way that we start the cue off in terms of introduction, and the cue is basically, we have an intro, we have the A section, right, that develops, then we have a bridge or the B section, and then we come back to the even further developed A section in terms of how I'll kind of take you to the section. So in the intro, basically it's a pretty ominous intro, and we have some low brass, some timpani, of course our sub bass and a contra bass clarinet. This is just kind of really setting the tone for us. So here. Nothing simple, just on that pedal. And then we quickly introduce that villain sound right after that. Okay, so that is the full intro. So the low tones, we introduce our villain sound, and then the other thing that you hear is you hear a low string ostinato, and this ostinato is going to be pretty present throughout the entire cue. Now this ostinato starts on the interval of a tritone. So if we go back, here, and again, so the scale, that's the E octatonic scale, and then so we have a natural tritone in there that I'm using pretty often throughout the cue, but that is the interval that the ostinato is built off. So is that E up to B flat. So that low ostinato So, and I'm using the Metropolis Arc 5 low strings for that. And then that ostinato is further developed once the theme comes in. So let me just play the ostinato for you as it's developed. Okay, and hang on a second. Let me get these clicks out of here. Okay, here we go. And that is the ostinato that you will hear kind of constantly moving through as the pinning of just giving it some motion and some action. So now once we have established our intro, the next thing that I do is I kind of establish a melodic theme for the cue, right? And so that melody is again a really mangled up sound there. So let me show you, I guess, what I'm doing with the sound first, and then we'll quickly just talk about the melody. So I'm using Omnisphere again, and this is an unfinished patch, and I guess I did a couple of tweaks to it, but it's an unfinished Siberia patch that I'm using from Omnisphere. But obviously, the big thing is just, how mangled the patch is. So I'm using, Decapitator, Bit Crusher, and then I'm running it through the CLA guitar. So if we kind of bypass all those, and then of course I have some reverb, I'm sending it to a reverb send as well. All right, so here we go. So, pretty basic. So then we add the decapitator. Mangles it a bit more. And what are our settings on there? So I'm using the E setting, and then of course I have punish on. You see I have the drive. Pretty aggressive. I didn't cut any of the lows. Wanted to keep it pretty dark, and I did cut the highs on it. Okay, and then I'm also using a Bit Crusher. See the setting there. And then I just run it through that CLA, guitar. But I do not have the reamplify on. So I left reamplify off, but running it through that. Okay. So that's what I used, to construct the sound. I wanted something unique. I wanted something, really kind of aggressive and disturbed and nasty because it is a villain sound. And then the other thing that you'll notice is I am using my pitch bend, as you will see here, just to kind of, give the melody just a little more disturbance as it gets that little pitch bend fall on it as well. And then finally, the other thing that you will notice is that I'm using the tritone in reverse here. So the ostinato was right with the tritone, and then here the melody is. So it's the tritone in reverse. It's the E down to B flat. So I'm constantly playing on that tritone motif throughout the cue. Okay. So as it continues to build, I do layer in more, strings and some woodwinds with the ostinato. But one thing you will notice about this section, the first half of the A section, or if you want to call it the first third of the A section, is that I really leave it pretty open so to establish the melody. So I have really just that, those low brass, some drums, but not crazy, and then that low ostinato, and then of course my sub bass, and then that sub bass kind of sounds like this. Just nasty, just wanted something nasty. And that is again Omnisphere, and it's a patch called Air Ranger bass. Okay, so again, so I'm just going to play now the establishment of the theme, and you'll hear again how open the section is as compared to as we continue to build the theme. Okay, so you have the theme starts. Now we get into the second half of that statement. Well, I guess first, let's quickly just look at the drums. So basically, what we're doing here in the drums is so everybody pretty much kind of playing, the same rhythm, just looking for some power and some drive with my drums. Timpani, a couple of snares layered, do have some orchestral toms in there. So if we just quickly, so you can hear how everything kind of breaks out. Timpani. Okay, if we add our snares in there. All right, we add our toms, orchestral toms in. Okay, we add our piatti, orchestral cymbal. And I did put some chain hits in just to give it a little more nasty. All right, and then some sticks from Damage. So if you notice, something that I'm trying to do is take advantage of the entire frequency spectrum. So, we have some very low things, but also some very high sounds as well, just to try to, and some mid-range, just trying to build out the full spectrum of sound within our drums, making use of the entire spectrum. And we have some some low drums. Okay, and Damage 5, I don't know what that is. Let's see what those are. Some more low drums, so they go with these. Right, and then let's see, we got Hans Zimmer percussion. And then some more Hans Zimmer percussion here. So some more sticks. And you hear I have that slight delay on the sticks. I typically like doing that. I think it just helps give us a little more movement, etc. And then I just have, the other thing I have is Ferrum. So yeah, just a sub hit. So again, we put all that together for our drums. Okay, so there you go. So that's the driving force. So now, as we get into kind of the second half of that theme, we introduce a horn counter, and then we also have some trumpet stabs, right? So, and it's just to continue to create interest in the cue. So our horns And you know, if you follow any of my videos, I kind of typically like to use the same horn layers, the BBC full horns, the center brass horn ensemble short, and then the 12 horns as well. So the horns sound like this. And then if we add our trumpet stabs, and something common that you will hear a lot as well is that dissonance that you do hear in the trumpets. So if we take a look at that, so here, and basically it's really still kind of playing on that E chord, but we're using that B flat from the octatonic scale right against the B natural, and then of course with the E on top. So that's why you're getting that dissonance, but it really works in this particular type of setting. And then the only other thing that we do have is we do have like our oboe, clarinet, bass clarinet that are helping support the ostinato. And then a contra bass clarinet is just. And that's it. So in that second half of the theme, we continue again to build, you know, the intensity of the cue, and then we layer in some flutes and violins on the ostinato as we make a very quick key change, you know, up to G minor. And then the only other thing that we have, of course, that I played for you earlier is that driving bass sound as well. Now, the way we help to get ourselves up into this quick key change, and this is pretty typical. So in terms of like key changes, you'll notice a lot. You'll always see a lot in kind of cinematic writing, movements in thirds. So sometimes major thirds, minor, but I'm going to minor third. So I'm going from E minor up to G minor, and not with any type of transitional chord or anything. When you're doing those movements in thirds, oftentimes you can make a direct jump to that new key in the third, you know, without any type of transitional chord or salop. The only thing that I do have is a scale, a run with my flutes and piccolos to get us up into G minor, but that's it. So let's just check out how we get into G minor from E minor very smoothly without any, you know, transitional chord to set up that G minor. All right. So if we check that out, so let's go from here and then just listen to how we get into G minor, and it feels, you know, pretty natural, I think. Here we go. All right, so a lot going on in that very small segment. We went up to G minor, we came back down to E minor. We also introduced a choir once we got to G minor, just to give it some additional power. And of course, as I said, we layered that ostinato higher with our violin. We added our violin 1 and 2, and we added flutes and piccolos. So the choir, what we have going on there is we have a women's choir. And a men's choir. Okay, and then what I am doing there, let me show you in terms of over here. So I just have my reverb send for the choir just going to their bus. So you hear the reverb there, but that's just going to the choir bus over here. You see I got my choir bus, and then I just have a reverb send. I'm going there, and see my reverbs are here. So I set up different sends for my reverb. So woodwinds, brass, drums, strings, choirs, synths. And then I'm using the East-West Spaces 2. And I like the Reynolds, basic that I'm using there for the choir. So just wanted to point that out because I know you hear the reverb, and you may have been wondering like, okay, well, where is it coming from? So yeah, that's the way I like to approach utilizing my reverbs, as many do. Okay, so so we have the choir, which I think just really gives it some nice power there, and then of course our violin 1, violin 2. And then where's our flute as well. Oh, and then we have that run going up also. So let me play that for you. And that's really it. So as you can see again from the intro, you kind of establish just the vibe, and you introduce the villain, right? And then you have your theme that's more open so you can hear it. Then you develop it with some some horn counters, trumpet stabs, increase the intensity by doing a quick modulation, upper minor third, bringing in the choir for some additional power, layering in the ostinato just a little higher, and then we come out of that section with just a little breath as we get ready for our bridge, right? So so at the bridge, this section shows, I think, a little different side of the villain, as we marry like the villain sound against like some cellos playing like this beautiful melody. So let's check that out. Let's get into that. Okay, so let's just kind of get started with the bridge. So, as I said, so we still have our, villain sound, which you guys are very aware of what that sounds like now. So we have this. We have this melody, but let me play for you first some of the support that I have going around that. So I have a pad that I'm using from Omnisphere. Okay, hang on, let me get these. And so if you guys are wondering why you keep hearing the sticks when I solo, and this is just something that to note. So I have these sticks in read mode, and I did some automation on the mute just to really make it clean when I came out of cutting that delay. So I automated the delay off, and I just muted as well because I wanted a very clean cut in terms of what's going on there. But when you do that, and this is in read mode, and then you try to solo, it won't mute because it's in read mode. So you have to take it out of read mode for it to mute. So that's why sometimes you hear those sticks coming back in. That's just an aside, just, you know. All right, so anyhow, here we go. Okay, and that pad, so you see there, is China's Rising Tide. Great sounding pad. And then I also have this art that I'm using. So we kind of just changed the vibe a little bit, right? And this is called Feel the Burn, and it's from a Guy Kaiju pad. I believe that's the way you say it. It's from the Unfinished. Basically, what I'm trying to do in this section is show a more human side to the villain. So hence the warm, pad, and like I said, and then this melody that we have with the cellos, right? And basically I am using the Cinematic Studio String cello, the BBC cello, and then the BBC cello leader, just to help give that section a little more definition. So here we go. And the other thing is I really, get up into the upper register of the cellos as well. And I think it sounds quite nice. And then the only other thing that I have there is since we do have that ARP going on, I have a little answer kind of to the ARP with my violin ones and violin twos. Okay. So just a little answer to the ARP, and I have the piccolos doing that same thing as well, and flutes. And you see, the other thing is that you will notice is what? Hopefully, I was hoping that you would be able to identify it, is in the cellos playing that melody, the tritone. So you hear, I think it's the E down to B flat, right? Right, down to that B flat. So we're still using the tritone in every section of this, because that is a critical piece or critical melodic part of this entire cue. And then the only other thing we have to kind of remind us that it still is a villain cue, even though we're trying to see a more human side of the villain, is that bass. Like, I could have opted to go with like the double bass and just nice, beautiful long tones, but I opted to keep the sub bass in there and to keep some sense of that villain nastiness in there. So that just keeps, as I said, some sense of that nastiness and villain in there. And then the only thing is as we continue to develop this, now you notice that the cello melody continues on an upward arc. So it's just continue to build up, right? And then the other thing that I do to try to keep some tension in there is I add a shepherd tone from Metropolis Arc. I love these shepherd tones. And this is just to build tension, just a low layer of tension all the way throughout. So you get this. So, you imagine that, so against this, because, you more feel it than hear it when everything's going, but it definitely adds to the tension. Right? Like a whole different vibe now. When you kind of hear that isolated out. So it's definitely in there. It definitely gives us a sense of tension. And then the only other thing is as the cue builds in intensity, we layer in different things to help kind of push that, right? So the first thing that we do is we layer in some light drums and sticks, snares, and then we do this build with our horns, right? And then we finish it off with the power of the trumpets to get us into the final theme of this. So, and then the only other thing I want to note for you is in the drums, I introduced for the very first time a bass drum, and it really does make a difference. So I just want to play it for you separately. And it's just amazing how these small decisions really add. Now, noting that, like I said, I added that bass drum, listen to the impact that that bass drum has in this section. So we do all that. We come to a big hit on the 5. And then I use, and it is a hybrid cue. So of course, we talked about all the sounds and the synths and all that good stuff, but now I use these risers together to really give us that push into the final theme. So I'm using a combination here. And so you hear it's like a whoosh hish, a whoosh that I have there, and it says, contrary motion, and then a detuned riser as well. And then, so coming out of that, we've had our moment of, hey, there's a human side to our villain and all that good stuff. And now we're back to our theme. But when we come back, we have to really kind of amp it up, if you will. So it comes back now. I use the power of the horns and the trumpets, along with some cutting ability of our high strings and flutes to really, I want to really boldly, state this theme when we come back into it. And then the other thing is, you see, I have it more open. So, ba, boom, boom, you know, it's actually a theme. I'm still singing the theme from the bridge, but boom, 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 right? So just a more open and more powerful when we come back around to it this time. So let's get back into it and hear how we open it up, and we engage the trumpets and we engage the horns with the strings. I'm sorry, let me start a little further back. And then the other thing that I do is now, you know, we add some different harmonies on there. Let me find that melody. Okay, the melody's here. So you see, we add some different harmonies on that melody there. Let's solo that. So really adding some dissonance, you know, to it as well. So I just wanted to make sure I kind of pointed that out for you. And then when we come back from the open section, the trumpets really take over with that mangled, you know, guitar sound, which is our main sound for the villain theme. And you'll notice that in this open section, I intentionally left out the villain sound. So the villain sound is not there. That screaming sound is not there. I wait, and then I bring that back once we get back into tempo, and now the trumpets are driving that theme. So when we get back into tempo, the villain comes back in, and now the trumpets are really helping to drive that theme home. The horns are still giving us our counterlines, and then we have, you know, our strings and our winds kind of really chugging along on the ostinato, and then that sub bass just kind of driving the bottom. So man, again, you guys notice my use of the choir in this cue is very sporadic, but when they come with the power, and I think it just really, because I use the choir so sporadically, when they do come in, it just really adds just another level of power every time we get to that G minor modulation, and then of course, you know, kind of finishing up you know, in E minor. They just really add a nice sense of power. So we finish out this theme again open, then we add the trumpets, you know, to drive the melody, to help drive the melody in the final section. We do bring back the choir for power. Of course, I said, you know, we add that dissonance in the melody with the trumpets as well. And then before we come to our final button, one thing that I definitely wanted to make sure that I did is I wanted to give the villain their final voice, if you will, by themselves before we hit that final button. So the way we close it out is, you know, again on that E minor chord, then that villain has their final say, and then we hit the button. I'm just going to play from G minor for you to the end. Oh, that's, I'm like, why is this thing not locking up? And it's because I have it on beat. I don't have it on bar. All right, here we go. So there it is. I mean, that is it. Again, a villains hybrid, orchestral hybrid villains theme. Man, it was a lot of fun trying to put this together. It was challenging as well. You know, with trying to, you know, figure out how to identify a villain, how do I make a unique sound, you know, trying to have a theme and then utilizing those tritones throughout, you know, the entire process to make it work. So, man, if you've never written using the ostinato scale, I would challenge you to do so. I actually, in this series, was the first time that I've written utilizing the ostinato scale, and it's been a lot octatonic. I think I said ostinato. That's hilarious. So if you've never written using the octatonic scale, I challenge you to do so. It's pretty challenging, but it's a lot of fun as well. And it opens up just some different, you know, ideas in terms of harmonies and things of that nature, and even melodic ideas. So yeah, I would definitely challenge you to do so. But again, I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope you got something out of it. As always, I certainly appreciate you taking the time to stop by and check out the video. Again, I hope you got something out of it, some inspiration, you know, some hope, some drive, whatever it is. You know, shoot me something in the comments. Let me know what you thought about it. I hope you liked it. If so, like it, share it. It'll definitely help out the channel. And as always, thanks so much. Peace and God bless.